Hello, everybody. Welcome to a new episode of AZ Security, the new channel in which we present the latest security news about the Azure landscape. My name is Dinan Paardenkoper. I'm a Microsoft MVP at IT Impressive. And today we're going to talk about how to tame Gen AI wave with Purview data security posture management for AI. A complete mouthful. Today I have a special guest, and that's Dominique Hermans. Dominique, can you introduce yourself, please?
Yes, of course. Thanks for having me, Dinant.
You're welcome.
My name is Dominique Hermans. I live in the south of the Netherlands, and I work as a data security consultant here in the Netherlands at Inspire currently, and yeah, that's it. Basically, I've been around in IT business for around, I think, 15, 16 years, moving from all things on-premise that had a Microsoft logo on it to the cloud. And last few years, I specialize in everything data security and compliance with Microsoft Purview.
Awesome. That sounds great. 60-year plus. Wow. And
Yes.
if you're saying it like that, I'm also feeling a quite bit old. That's always great to see. I also have seen changing the logos.
Yeah. Yes, very nice.
But
Um,
yeah, you're telling about Purview. Wow,
yes.
that's a great topic. Can
Yeah.
you? How long are you MVP, and how long do you work with this beautiful technology?
Well, Purview specifically, I think now 1 year and a half, 2 years, I think, and it became more and more since I started at InSpark. And what we see nowadays is that there are a lot of companies that want to hop on board of the data security and compliance train because of laws and regulations, and also the rise of generative AI, of course. And that's,
Definitely.
I think, also the topic for today. So if you don't mind, I would like to see a few slides as an introduction.
Yeah, please go ahead. The stage is yours.
Yes, thank you. So we're talking today about the module Data Security Posture Management for AI in Purview, and that's indeed, as you said earlier, is quite a mouthful. So from now on, let's refer to it as DSPM for AI. I think that's a lot easier.
I
Well,
think
let
so.
me share the slides. 1 second. Here we go. Let's see if I can hit the correct buttons. Yes, looks okay.
Yeah, we
So,
see a screen. Yes,
okay, great. So you're seeing the slides now.
definitely. Yeah.
Okay, great. So if we look at the Gen AI wave nowadays, I think the challenge is that more and more employees are using generative AI tools to be more productive. And that can go one of two ways, I think. They are using a generative AI tool that has been provided or allowed by the user's organization, or the other side is that they're going to use a generative AI tool that has not been provided or allowed by the user's organization. And well, if we are taking a look at both of these options, when using, for example, Microsoft 365 Copilot, we get various, let's call them guarantees by Microsoft, who say that our data stays within the Microsoft 365 service boundaries. So then we're talking about the data that you're essentially feeding to Copilot, so that you're typing in your prompt and typing as a question to get answers from Copilot in this case. And for that, Microsoft says, that data stays within the Microsoft 365 service boundary. And in our case, because we're based in the Netherlands, that service boundary is the European Union. Some other guarantees we get is that your input isn't used to train the large language model, and it adheres to your permission infrastructure. So Copilot doesn't reason over files that you don't have any permission over.
Right.
So an often heard quote in that regard is that your data is your data. But that's all in regard to Copilot. So if we take a look at the second bullet in our slide, the generative AI tools of choice that has not been provided or allowed by the user's organization, we don't get the same guarantees. So your data might be used to train the large language model, or your data, for example, could be shared with or sold to external parties. And from a personal perspective, you know, when you use these tools for personal, how do you say it in English? For personal stuff, it doesn't matter. But when you're using data from your organization, I think that's when you want to protect your data.
Exactly.
And yes, and that's nothing keeps your employees from sharing data with Gen AI applications like, for example, ChatGPT or Claude.ai or Gemini or all the, I don't know how many there are these days, but
Too much.
yes, you can say that. So I tend to think that there are three levels of control in which you can, tame this generative AI wave we're in right now. And you can say as an organization, well, I would like to block these applications as a whole, or on the other side, I will give the user an alternative in, like, for example, Copilot. But when you don't give them Copilot, users know from their personal experience that they can be more productive when they use a Gen AI tool. So they're going to search for one anyway. And that means
True.
that your data is ending up in those public generative AI services.
Yeah, you can better, I think, provide tools which are basically allowed and
Yes.
protecting your data instead
Yeah.
of they are using things outside the company which leaks information basically.
Yes, of course. So that's the gap where DSPM for AI, this module in Purview, comes into play. And the nice thing, if we take a look at the slides from Microsoft, they say, and I have to read that because I cannot remember that correctly, but it says DSPM for AI provides you with easy-to-use graphical tools and reports to quickly gain insights into AI use within your organization. So the first objective of the tool is to give you insight in what's happening in your organization with Gen AI. Second, there are one-click policies available that help you protect your data and comply with regulatory requirements. So it has two functions: give you insight, and second, give you more control of or over the information that users share with those Gen AI tools. And it's a product from Microsoft, but that doesn't mean that this is only for use in Copilot. It can also work with those Gen AI tools, other Gen AI tools of third parties.
That's
And
nice.
yes, and the list at this point, I think it's 300 or 350 different Gen AI tools long that are supported. So that's very nice.
Yeah, definitely. That's very helpful nowadays.
Yes, yes. So the nice thing is of this product is that it doesn't do something new if we take a look at it from a Purview perspective, because it uses various modules or techniques, if you will, that are already in store from within Purview. So that are tools that are already at your disposal. And we're using, for example, data classification, information protection, or sensitivity labeling, if you will, data loss prevention, communication compliance, insider risk, and auditing. And because we're going to use these techniques, I want to go over them really quick, so not into depth, but really quick, so we know what these techniques do before we dive into the portal and take a look at the DSPM for AI product. Is that okay?
Yeah, definitely. I think that's great for the audience as well to just have a short, high-level overview. Yes.
Okay. All right. So the first one is, of course, a data classification, and this can be done manually by admins or users, or in an automated way. And if we talk about the manual side, we're talking about data labeling, and maybe you've seen this. If you're using a Word, for example, you can click a button and you can apply a label to a document. And what that label does, we will see in the next slide. So I'm not going to reveal too much on that part. But the other side of this is automated pattern matching and classifiers. And with the use of these two, we can let Purview take a look for keywords or metadata inside documents. And with that, you can apply rules that say if I find a certain word or some phrase or maybe a credit card number, Purview can tell you, hey, this document holds a credit card number. So it's a sensitive document. Good to know here is that there are around 300 types of sensitive data already in the product, but you can also build your own. So, for example, if you have a company that doesn't want their employees to mention some other company, for example, you can make a classifier for it. And when documents are found with that other company's name in it, a flag gets raised and this stuff is audited, for example.
Yeah, it's very nice. You can say also with companies moving into each other because of one is merging basically. That
Yeah.
also helps in the documents which you have to change basically on the name.
Yeah, that's correct. Yeah. And there are other ways to do this. For example, exact data match. You can attach it to a database, and you can use, and the database is just an example, but you can use variables in that database to look for in your documents. And you can use trainable classifiers. And trainable classifiers are really an advanced way which uses some kind of AI, I think you can call it, to classify your document. But let's not get into deep into this part. So information protection, which is also called sensitivity labeling. I mentioned it briefly earlier, but you can think of it like a stamp. And when you put a sensitivity label onto a document, it always stays with that document. So, for example, if I download a document from my SharePoint site, I put it on a thumb drive and I lose it on the train, for example. If I've chosen to attach security to that label, and by this means this means encryption, that's no problem because the file itself is encrypted and the label and the encryption stay within the file. So besides that, it also teaches your users to think about with whom to share documents with, documents that have a certain sensitivity. And security, for example, is one type of logic you can attach to it, but you can also, for example, show watermarks or headers or footers. So that's some other type of sensitivity labeling. And you can attach these labels to documents, to spreadsheets, to all kinds of supported files.
Yeah, definitely. It's a great tool. I've seen it in action, and
Yeah.
it's also very helpful if you have retention policies. But
Yes.
that I will keep it to you.
Yes, sure. And one module that's actually very big in the DSPM 4 AI tool is data loss prevention, and we have two different products, two different kinds of data loss prevention, and generally the P in data loss prevention. So the word prevention is really key in this because it doesn't protect your information once it's out the door, but it prevents it from going out the door. So it prevents users from oversharing information. And it does this by applying actions to items that are considered to contain sensitive information. And for that, it uses these sensitive information types or these classifiers that we talked about earlier. We can use data loss prevention in four types of services, if you will, in the Microsoft 365 services like SharePoint, OneDrive, Exchange, Teams, and on endpoints, so Windows 11 and Mac OS. And we will see later when we dive into the environment that this is really key for capturing information in those Gen AI sites. You can also use it on file servers if you like, or third-party applications can make use of it by connecting with the Purview ecosystem using an API. But we will see later on that this is kind of a big deal within DSPM for AI.
Cool.
And then it's kind of considered an advanced topic inside of risk management because when you look at it from a distance, it essentially collects information from all kinds of different sources, like for example Microsoft 365. But you can also connect it to other services, like for example your HR system. And what it does, and I always like to explain this with an example. Say you have an employee that is fired, and the process of him or her leaving the organization isn't all that nice to begin with. You can perhaps see that user stealing information and then taking that information with him, even though that information isn't him or hers. So what this system does, it triggers or it flags, if you will, a user, for example, if he or she is leaving the organization, and it then starts to monitor this user for data leaks, for example. So it starts monitoring the user when it starts to download information, in big ways from SharePoint. So not downloading one document, but maybe 50 or 100, and then exfiltrate that information by, for example, put it on a thumb drive or emailing it to a private email address. And that's where insider risk management comes in, because it collects all of these signals from within Purview that get monitored, and it combines these in a really nice view. So you can see over time what happened since that user was being fired, for example. And
Nice.
this also is used from within DSPM for AI.
Yeah, it's a great functionality.
Yeah.
It sounds like the old days that we had IRM with DSM. But,
Yeah, I heard about that too. Yeah.
It's
Yeah.
really powerful. It's very
Yeah.
helpful for the security people.
Yeah, unfortunately, I don't see it that much yet in organizations, but I think it will be big in the future. Yeah.
Definitely with the GDPR and
Yeah.
the NIS2, which basically proclaims that you have to do something from your organization perspective, right?
Yes. Yes. Yeah. Yeah. Sure. So the last topic before we go into the environment and where the fun starts, but that's auditing. And you have to know, and I think you also should make your employees aware that if you're using the Purview product, everything is audited. So not only for administrators, but also for users. So almost every action they take is stored in a place called the Unified Audit Log. And that's the main repository where Purview gets his information. So all the different modules and all the different tools from within Purview get most of their information out of this audit log. And we will take a look at this in just a moment, but that's something you should really be aware of.
I have a question. Is it possible that I can connect my SIEM to the auditing?
Yes, I think so. Yes. Yeah, of course, because when we take a look at Sentinel, for example, it's possible to connect. Yes, no problem.
Cool.
Let me see. The last slide is about licensing, and it's a topic we don't want to talk about, but unfortunately, we have to do this because, as I told earlier, the DSPM for AI product makes use of other modules, so there aren't any licenses specifically for DSPM for AI. But if you take a look at this picture, and it's a nice overview made by Matthew Silcox, who presented this on LinkedIn a while ago. And as you can see, for example, the dark purple a cubicle on top is about data loss prevention. And we can see there that with the E3 license, we can do data loss prevention for Exchange Online, SharePoint Online, and OneDrive for Business. But if we want to do data loss prevention on endpoints, we have to have that E5 license. So because DSPM is rather focused on endpoints and users being able to take a look at third-party generative AI sites, I don't say you need, but you can almost not do without the E5 license if you want those endpoints monitored. Sure, you can go for monitoring in only Copilot and some other workloads, but because it's reasonably heavy on the data loss prevention on endpoint side, I wouldn't necessarily recommend using it with an E3 license. Besides that, the more pinkish kind of color beneath that shows that insider risk management is, as a whole, only available in E5 and not in E3. So those two subjects make me say that I think it's really a good product if you use the E5 licensing, and I think it's less relevant when you use E3.
Yeah, I think I can totally agree. Also, if you're using Microsoft 365, E5 license is required basically to enable the tagging, what you were just explaining about.
Yeah. Yeah, so for information protection sensitivity labeling, for example,
Exactly.
you can do with E3, but it's only manual labeling. So if you want to go in the automatic phase, you need E5. So great.
Nice picture. It's very helpful
Yeah,
in getting the greater picture.
yeah, because otherwise you have to go through all this documents on licensing, and nobody wants that. I think.
It's a hard topic always.
Yeah, they have special people to do that kind of stuff. It's not my favorite subject to talk about.
No, there are specific trainings for that.
Yeah. Do you have any questions so far, Dinat?
No. I'm also explaining a lot of Microsoft trainings also about Purview, and a few of them popped up like last week. One of the guys were saying like, "Can I enable my Sentinel or my SIEM solution?"
Yeah.
So that's why I was triggered.
Okay. Nice.
As an MCT, you always have to have the answers, right?
Yeah, they say that. I don't think it's possible to have all the answers nowadays with so much going on and the updates that keep rolling in. It's nearly impossible. Even if
True.
if you specialize in one subject, like for example data security and compliance, even then it's not possible.
No. You have people around us, for example, or others
Yeah,
that we can ask, and that makes it very fun.
yeah,
So
sure.
I always like the discussions together with my students.
Yeah, yeah. Okay, so if it's okay by you, I would like to show a little demo of DSPM for AI, because I think that's what we're here for.
Yeah, definitely, we love it. So bring it up,
Okay.
please.
Okay,
Show us.
let me switch around some screens so I keep looking in the camera, or otherwise it looks as though I am looking to another screen the entire time. That's not very nice. So let's see. Let me share the actual screen.
Well, maybe I can ask you a question in between.
Of course.
What are specific disadvantages around Purview since you're working now 1.5 year with this technology? Are there specific drawbacks that you say like, well, it's hard to understand or it was hard to implement basically in Purview?
Well, it's if you take a look at the whole Microsoft 365 ecosystem, it's and I know there is a phrase for it in Dutch, but in English I have to say that I know the English phrase now. It's a different cup of tea. I think that's the,
You're
I think
saying it nicely.
yeah. So, and what you see is that Microsoft Purview takes a look at things from a different angle than what you're used to when you're using products like Microsoft 365 and an environment built for productivity. So maybe you know that there is a Microsoft Purview essentially that works with Microsoft 365, but Purview can also be used to protect and govern information in Microsoft Azure. So what often is said is that information in Microsoft 365 is unstructured, and information in databases or data lakes in Microsoft Azure is structured information. So there's a Purview site for that as well. And when I was first diving into Purview and learning about all the modules that are available, that's how do you say it? That's a separation you really have to make, so that there are essentially two Purview products that are for two different workloads essentially. But in the end, they're trying to make this a nice unified console where all of these workloads are coming together. And I think at this point we are in that process of merging those two. And that can sometimes be a little difficult.
I can imagine definitely at the beginning of Purview, it was sometimes a struggle, like, do I see the correct information?
Yes. Yeah, of course, we first had the compliance center, and then it was moved in under the Purview brand. At the beginning of that time, that's where I came in, and I was totally confused where to look. So,
Okay.
but we've got it under control now, and I think that's that's what matters.
Awesome, great.
Yeah, so let's take a look at the product, and let's go into DSPM 4 AI right here. And some nice overview of what we have to do and the prerequisites we have to meet before we can use the product. And the first one is that we have to activate Microsoft Purview Audit. So that was what I was just telling about. And in newer tenants, Audit is enabled by default. But if you have, for example, a tenant that is older, it can be the case that you have to enable it yourself. And it's really simple. You just go to the, let me show you, to the audit solution over here. And it displays a nice blue banner which says start recording information or start recording user info, I think. Oh, I see that my background is gone now.
Yeah, I'm getting a message in my screen as well, but
Okay.
you can continue if you want.
Okay, sure, no problem. Let me see if I can put it back, but okay. Well, that shows all kind of messages. Well, no problem. Let's continue. Let me see. When Purview Audit is enabled, you then have to install the Microsoft Purview browser extension. And let's take a look at the help article that's right here, because there's been some confusion on this. There are, people in the industry that say you don't have to have this this extension if you're using Microsoft Edge, but Microsoft Edge does have some Purview functionality built in. But for DSPM 4 AI, we do have to use this compliance extension, because otherwise not all the signals from the user's browser are getting back to the Purview system.
Oh, that's good to know.
Yeah. So you can install this yourself manually, but of course, if you're in a large organization, you can leverage Intune, for example, to deploy the extension. Okay, well, if we go back right here, the next step is to onboard devices to Microsoft Purview. And it has support for Windows and macOS devices. For Windows, when the Defender endpoint is present, so it doesn't have to be active, but it has to be present, there's a small component in there for Purview, and you can activate it by using a script. So if you're going to, for example, let me see, settings, device onboarding, then it shows here that we have, for example, it still says Windows 10. I don't know why, but it's for Windows 10 and 11. You can get a local script, which is essentially a batch script that runs, but I would recommend this only for testing. And there's also, information on deploying it via a group policy or via endpoint configuration manager or via Intune, or there are also VDI onboarding scripts available. So I think everything to deploy it, whichever situation you use. And we have also got some options for macOS, so that's really nice. When you've done that, your endpoint will show up under devices over here, and it will show you whether your configuration status or your policy sync status is up to date. Let me see. Now, when we go back to the DSPM AI portal, we have done all this, and we can start with what they call here data discovery. So this really shows how easy it is to deploy stuff in the various Purview modules to, how do you say it? So it's easy to deploy in other modules. So of course, in my environment, these policies are already created, but what you see here is that it has created two policies who provide insight in the use of AI sites from me. So the first one is an insider risk management policy called DSPM AI, and it detects when users visit AI sites. This is not really all that interesting to see, but if we take a look at the second one, detect sensitive info pasted or uploaded to AI sites, that's really cool to see. So it uses, as I said earlier, it relies heavy on data loss prevention, but it creates a data loss prevention policy called DSPM AI, detect sensitive info added to AI sites. Now, when we move over to the data loss prevention module here in Purview, take a look at our policies, then we can see that policy right here, detect sensitive info added to AI sites. And it's good to mention that it only detects, so it doesn't disrupt your user's workflow or anything like that. Let me edit the policy so we can get a better look at what it does. So it essentially discovers sensitive content pasted or uploaded in Microsoft Edge, Chrome and Firefox. This policy covers all users and groups in your organization in audit mode only. So it doesn't do anything besides show you the information.
It's not blocking.
It's not blocking, correct.
Right.
So one thing I found interesting here is that it talks about Microsoft Edge and Chrome, for which both the extension is available, we talked about earlier. I don't see Firefox mentioned there, though. So I don't know whether there is, an extension coming, or maybe already available for Firefox. We have to see. But maybe this is a good point to also tell that a lot of these DSPM AI components are still in preview. So that I think makes up for it.
Okay.
Admin units we don't use here, and here you can see it, the location where it's applied, its devices, and because this of course is a demo environment, I only attach it to one user, which is my test user. And here is this is the page where stuff gets interesting, because here we can see what it actually does, and it says we're auditing sensitive data shared to generative AI sites, And generative AI sites is, you can call it a collection, and this collection is maintained by Microsoft. So at this point, there are around 350 AI sites in this collection, which you can take a look at. There's an article for it on Microsoft Learn. I will share it with you, so you can share it with your viewers, Dinant.
Yeah.
So it essentially looks at various sensitive input types, so sensitive input types in information. And this can be information also that's copy-pasted to such a Gen AI site. So these are all standard available in Purview. And what you can see that I've done here below is that I've added a custom one, which is called the Sensitive Info Type Star Wars Saga. So if you talk about one of the episodes of the Star Wars Saga, you get flagged.
You like Star Wars?
Yes, I do. I think we all do.
Yeah. Guilty.
So, well, this basically says it looks at the message or attachment, and the action it does here, it audits or restricts activities on devices. Well, we have to dive in here to see that it really only does start auditing. Here it says so. So when we upload stuff or when we paste to supported browsers, it only audits.
And if I have my own Gen AI solution built up from my company, how can I add it as well that it will be protected?
You cannot add it to the list that's mentioned here. So this is called the Generative AI site, and I think we can see it over here. Let me see. Scroll back to the top. No, it doesn't say so. I think it does below somewhere.
But I can make it my own, right? This is the default one, which is maintained basically by Microsoft, if I understand correctly.
Correct. Yeah.
But I can.
You can make your own group of, for example, websites, because these techniques are not only used for Gen AI sites, but you can use the same mechanism to protect against other sites you don't want your employees to stumble upon or paste information upon. Yeah,
like ChatGPT.
Yeah, for example, and this policy is being made by the DSPM AI module, so it's pre-configured, but you of course can build your own.
Right. Okay.
Well, here it says turn the policy on immediately, and that's that. And then we get to the summary screen. So we talked about this audit log before, and we can take a look at it. You can search the audit log via variable or various parameters here. And I've created an export to show you what's in there exactly, and I had to mask some information because there's really much information on there that's not relevant. But you can see everything has a record ID, a creation date, a record type, and really interesting is the D column operation, where you can just see what happens, and this is an example for what happens on an endpoint. Files are read by this user, files are deleted, the user is logged in, a team session is started. But where it gets interesting for us is that there's here an action at line 27 that says paste it to browser.
Oh, cool.
So you can view the contents of this via the audit log viewer, but it's more interesting to take a look at it via another way. So if we take a look at the data loss prevention module again, here we have various explorers at our disposal. And if I take a look, for example, at the activity explorer and scope it to, I believe it was yesterday that I did some tests, it refreshes, and you can see here that there are 3 pasted to browser actions, 1 label change, 1 file modified, 10 files where a classification was stamped. So this means a sensitivity label that was stamped. Copilot interaction has been made, and 2 DLP rules have been matched. So that's really, really nice to see, and you can drill all the way down to see which DLP rule was matched, etc. And of course, it will show you that the DLP rule was matched that we took a look at just now. And now comes the good part, because if we go to DSPM AI and we take a look at the reports over here, you can see that all this information gets aggregated into one view. So here you can, for example, see the total interactions over time for Microsoft Copilot. Well, it can get this directly out of the audit log, because obviously Microsoft Copilot is a Microsoft product and it logs directly to the audit log.
Exactly.
But enterprise AI apps I will tell a short thing about later on. But when we take a look at this, other AI apps, you can see here, and of course this is a demo environment, so the numbers are relatively low. But what you can see here is that we can see the visits to other AI sites, and this is what that insider risk management module does. And if we scroll further down, we can see the various types of sensitive information that have been shared by with Copilot, but also to other AI apps. And here I did some tests with, here is the Star Wars saga, for example. We see money laundering questions that were asked, questions about medical terms, full names, types of medication, and others. And I've did some tests with credit card numbers to Claude and ChatGPT, and you see that those also show up. So if you have a large environment with a lot of users messaging these Gen AI services, all that information will surface here, and it gives you a first quick, really nice insight in what's going on in your organization, I think.
And one question pops up, maybe two. Can I see the contents which is provided to, for example, to ChatGPT? Can I see that? And can I also drill down to persons?
Well, it shows you which sensitive information type was triggered. So it shows you which type of sensitive information that was sent. I know for Microsoft Copilot that you can see the actual prompt that was asked and the response from Copilot that a user got back.
Okay.
I can't say for sure that it's the same case with third-party applications. I have to look that up. I don't know that for sure.
But can you see the person that did it?
Yes.
For instance, a new person joined the company, didn't knew the policy which was not explained to him, and then you see a high peak, for instance.
Yes, yeah, you can obviously, you can see the person involved, you can see the endpoint involved, IP information, all stuff like that. So you can track the user down if you would want that. Yeah. Let me see. How are we on time? We are already 42 minutes in, I see. Shall I pick some other interesting things?
Yeah. We have a few minutes left, so let's do that.
Yeah, because going into all of them, I think it's really too much. So let's go back to DSPM AI and take a look at the recommendations here. Because it gives you some recommendations to what you can do. So we have just taken a look at the first insights we gathered. You can detect, for example, risky interactions in AI apps. And that's managed via detect risky AI usage, obviously. And maybe good to tell you and not go into the environment to show this, because it will take us a while. But what this does, essentially, it uses an insider risk management policy to flag users when they when they have a risky activity, so to speak. So, for example, I told earlier about the mechanism in insider risk management that can detect when a user is exfiltrating information. You can use that same system to put a risk score to this user. So you can then in turn base, for example, endpoint DLP, data loss prevention rules on that. So you can think, for example, of a scenario that says if a user has a higher risk score than what is normal in your organization, you want to start monitoring it and maybe start blocking content from going to generative AI apps.
Okay.
So that's really an advanced use case. Another nice one to talk about is this, because we've taken a look mainly at receiving information and presenting that information to see what's going on in your organization. But this one, DSPM for AI, blocks sensitive info from AI sites, does essentially the same, but it starts blocking. And you can edit the policy if you would want to, and put sensitive information types you want blocked. So when a user tries to paste that information to a generative AI site, it gets blocked. So that's a really nice addition.
And do customers get a notification like, hey, this is blocked by company policy or?
Yeah, the user gets a notification, and of
Right.
course it's also coming up in the audit log. And if you want, you can even alert on stuff. So, for example, if someone tries one time to put sensitive information to or send sensitive information to ChatGPT, that can happen. But if they start sending 10, 15, 20, 50 times that much information, there is something going on. So you want that flagged, and you want an how do you say it? You want an admin to take a look at it, or someone that's responsible for this in your organization. I think that's maybe one other to show is that of course it can do more advanced things when we take a look at or combine it with Copilot. And one very nice thing is that we can now make use of our sensitivity labels to protect sensitive data in Copilot's prompts and responses. And this is something that is a very much heard question from customers, where they say, well, I don't know for sure if my infrastructure or my permissions infrastructure is in order, and I want to exclude some information from Copilot. I don't want Copilot to go over that information and use it in his or hers, I don't know which gender Copilot is, but in his responses. So then you can, for example, label your information that you don't want Copilot to reason over, and then you make a data loss prevention policy specifically scoped for Copilot that stops it from reasoning over that information. So it doesn't use that information anymore in its responses. So that's really cool. There's one, a little sideline to this, and that is that it's still in preview. That's one. And two is the fact that it only works for chat-based Copilot experiences.
Yeah, I saw. It's text, right?
Yeah, correct. So in the chat box, for example, if you use Copilot in Teams or the Copilot app in your browser, the M365 Copilot, I have to call it, because there are other variations as well. But yeah, and there's a lot more to this, because you can see I've not started all the recommendations here. There's an option to connect it to ChatGPT Enterprise AI to give you more control over that. And there's a lot of stuff in here. So I think we can fill another couple of hours on this, but I don't think our viewers will appreciate us for that, and maybe start falling asleep. I don't know.
Maybe I can invite you for another session.
Sure. I would. It would be great. Yeah. So
Wow, you've
maybe
touched
for
a
sorry.
lot.
Go ahead.
Yeah, no problem. You touched so many topics, and lots of questions are popping up. But definitely worthwhile to see the product in action.
Yeah.
And the possibilities, basically, which on AI is sometimes still difficult to track.
Yeah.
Definitely, if you have specific IP protection from your information that you want to have to protect, and anonymizing is not possible, or tokenization for that matter.
Yeah.
tools like this can definitely help, at least in getting a view, and then from there to do some digging into your data, basically.
Yeah, sure. Yeah, I agree. So it gives you a nice overview of what's going on, and it allows you to really easily set up policies which are non-destructive by default, and which you can adjust yourself to make more restrictive. So that's really nice about the product. Yeah.
Yeah, definitely. It's giving a total overview, basically, of your environment.
Yeah.
I just remembered one of my students were asking, like, does it work for every database type currently available in Azure? So I said to him, like, well, that's a big question. I
Yeah.
know it's working for SQL and Postgres as SQL.
Yeah.
Do you have some other answers as well on which product, specific products, on data perspective, it works? Does it work with Databricks, for example?
Do you mean the Purview product on itself, or the DSPM for AI feature?
I think the question is more for Purview than in
Yeah.
this case.
Yeah, okay. Well, I have to say that the Azure side of Purview is not really my expertise, but I know there is a lot of support these days. I looked it up a couple of weeks ago, and I think the list, if we take a look at data sources from Azure, I think there were 15, maybe 20 20 products in there. So data lakes, SQL databases, all that stuff is in there. So
Okay.
there is a table on Microsoft Learn, which I can also share, in which that gets answered. And maybe nice to know that all the modules I talked about in the beginning that are leveraged by DSPM for AI, I've written a blog on these, so maybe you could link those as well for the
Yeah, I will put the link under this message below, so
Great.
under this video. So we will do. Looking at the time, I think we have to wrap up. Otherwise,
Yeah.
we're sitting here the whole night.
Yeah.
I want to thank you for your time and for your explanation. It was very nice to see. Also, once again, for all the details and just talking us through within half an hour, and then showing the highlights. That's amazing. So thank you for that. It was great for having you here in AZ Security.
Thank you.
And
It was nice to be
hopefully,
here.
Sorry.
It was nice to be here.
Yeah, great. And hopefully you want to come back another
Sure,
time.
no problem. Yeah, no
All
problem.
right. Let's round up for tonight. Thank you once again, and have a nice evening. And for everybody, till next time, take care. Bye-bye.